Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's episode, stop what you're doing and get on your computer and hop over to patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature Podcast just for $5 a month. Hey, you can help support the channel. You get a bunch of bonus episodes over there. Getting into today's episode, we are continuing on with Sylvester Stallone month, and we got a big one here. We got a huge one of the career makers. We got Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, directed by Roger Spottiswoode. Wow, what a name. And produced by Ivan Reitman, so you know it's gold. It's starring Sylvester Stallone and Estelle Getty, who you might know from Golden Girls. She played Sophia, and they team up in a buddy cop movie. And I've never seen this one. This is like a notorious, like, bad movie. I've always wanted to see it.
I'm surprised they didn't team up sooner.
It's something you dream of, right? Like I'm sleeping at night, I wake up and I'm like, oh my god, Sylvester Stallone needs to be with the Golden Girls.
Somebody in 1991 had they'd fallen asleep while watching Golden Girls at home, and they're just like, man, why can't Estelle Getty just make a movie with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it was on just like the pulse. It was on the cutting edge. And I mean, I may be saying the box office a little early, but people saw it. It made $70 million, which I think it had a $40 million budget. So it was technically a hit. So I guess.
But is that including worldwide though?
Okay, so it only made 28 million domestically, which is pretty.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, and then it made 42 million internationally. So I guess overseas they were the ones really wanting the crossover of the century.
So yeah, it did not make any money.
No, it is such a bizarre concept, and like even at the time, people were saying that it got horrible reviews for its time. Just an odd movie, and it makes you question why Sylvester Stallone would pick something like this. But it is kind of like a famous thing that, I mean, Arnold's a liar. We've kind of learned this, but Arnold Schwarzenegger said that when he got this script, that he was interested in it. And you got to imagine at this time, while they were making this movie in the early 90s, it was like a battle between these two guys. Like, who was the bigger action star? Like Sylvester Stallone in one of his feuds, and he just decides, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the role out from Arnold. But Arnold was doing it to trick him, which is like the biggest 180.
I think Sylvester Stallone has confirmed this, and
he did confirm it.
I think so, but okay. After watching Pumping Iron, that does seem like something he would do, because just the way he was just like mentally trying to get into Lou Ferrigno's head, and just and I'm like this is classic Arnold.
No, it makes complete sense. Like I look at, like, after watching that documentary, I do look at Arnold like in like a whole new light. And when I heard that story, I was like, it's definitely plausible.
Like it totally makes sense, because he probably read the script and said like, oh wow, this is awful, and then he's like, you know what, I know just the person for this role, and then pretend that he was interested. Sylvester Stallone would like fight for the role, even though Arnold didn't care one bit.
Which is so funny. I think that at least adds a little bit of humor into this movie while watching it, is the idea that Arnold probably thinks this is the funniest movie ever made.
Oh yeah, I mean, to him it's probably hilarious just seeing his rival being constantly humiliated throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, so I wanted to go in with a fresh perspective, but this movie is bad. It is a bad movie, and I think it's a humiliating movie. It makes you feel embarrassed to watch it. At least I was.
I was. I don't use this word often, but I was cringing at so many of the jokes in the movie, because this movie is very bad, and it's not good at all. And it's the same joke, just like over and
Hmm.
over and it just paints Sylvester Stallone to be like this huge like wuss, like just total, like he's just whipped by his own mother, like where his mother's just like constantly taking out baby pictures and showing him and like, oh, here's my little boy naked, and like
Yeah, and like I can't handle like how many times I could hear Sylvester Stallone go, "But mom, mom," like just like
oh
whining,
mom. Yeah.
whining the whole time about his mother, and like it. Oh man, it's just like it stops becoming fun because I don't know, like the concept's all right. I think like maybe in a 30-minute sitcom, this could be a funny plot, but in an hour and a half long movie, it just like it becomes grating. I mean, it's never really funny. I don't really think I ever laughed during this movie.
Well, like I said, I mean, she goes on the plane and she's
Hmm.
showing everybody pictures. That way, when everyone gets off the plane, they're like, "Oh, that must be your boy." Like I saw you in
Hmm.
diapers and or whatever. Which is that
Yeah.
was a whole weird exchange because she showed pictures of him as a baby, and like these flight attendants are like, "Oh, maybe I should ask you out on a date. I love seeing a guy in Pampers," or like,
Yeah, well, I think the she says one of the flight attendants says you look sexy in diapers. And
yeah.
it's like, what? You just saw pictures of him as a baby. you you creep.
There's another really awful line later in the movie that I want to mention, but I'm not going to do it right now.
Yeah.
But again, like it's that one joke stretched out for 90
Yeah.
minutes,
It,
and because they redo the same joke over, like constantly showing the pictures, and I'm like,
yeah.
if you're going to do that, at least do some type of different gag, maybe. But it's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, it's just overbearing mother, and that's literally the joke the whole time. Because there's even a scene a little bit after that where Sylvester Stallone has to talk a guy off of a ledge, and she is showing people downstairs, all the cops, baby pictures of him, and they're all laughing, and it's like, and he's up, Sylvester Stallone's on the ledge with him, and he's just going, "Mom, stop! Mom, you can't show him pictures."
There, okay, there was one joke in this movie I thought was
Okay.
funny, and it was during that scene
Mhm.
because this guy was clearly was on a ledge, like you said, he was about to jump, and they said, "Well, what's his problem?" It's like, "Oh, he's got some issues with his mother," and then anyway, Sylvester Stallone gets embarrassed by his mother on the ledge, and he just looks so tormented. And
Mhm.
then the guy committing suicide, like going to commit suicide, he's like, "Ah, like I thought I had problems," and just and he
Mhm.
left and he walked out, and the cops were running up. It's like, "Where's the jumper?" And like the original jumper points to Sylvester Stallone, like, "You need to help that guy. He needs some help." Like, and like Sylvester Stallone is like for a split second thinking of just jumping, like,
Because of his mom showing pictures of him.
yeah,
You know, that's the thing. Sylvester Stallone's character is so like, it's so overblown. He like at one point offhandedly says like, "Oh, I want to kill my mother." It's like, dude, it's not that bad. I get it. She's a little annoying and she's showing pictures of you, but don't be like, "I want to kill my mom." And he seems like he legitimately wants to kill his mom in this movie.
yeah, and yeah, she's embarrassing, overbearing, and all that, but she's at least nice, and she
Yeah,
does,
she loves her child.
yeah. But I was reading, I guess originally in the script, it was originally supposed to be like a mean spirited old lady, like kind of like the movie
Really.
Throw Mama for the Train. So it was supposed to be like they had this strained relationship and that this would lead to like more, but they're like, "Oh, well, who's a popular little old lady?" Well, Estelle Getty, she's on the most popular sitcom on TV right now. So
Hmm.
let's put her on TV or on the let's put her in the movie. So I think that's what kind of led to that, and that's what he said. Sylvester Stallone said it's just like, well, they put like the sweet old lady on screen, and it's like we were supposed to not like her, but they had her just acting like a
Yeah.
sweet old lady. So it's nobody cared.
Exactly. It's hard to not like her in this, and like I really think that she's trying. I have no doubt that she isn't trying. It's just the material just isn't giving her anything really to do.
Yeah, I said it's the same joke over and
Yeah.
over again. It's just it gets very old, and
The,
the and even the plot of this movie is so thin, and it's just
yeah, it's I can't believe that that's the plot thread they went with, is like, so she ends up getting his gun, and like she cleans it to be a nice mom, and of course you can't clean a gun with like Clorox bleach and stuff, and of course, I don't know why, but she wakes Sylvester Stallone up pointing his gun at him, quoting Dirty
yeah.
Harry. Um, Really off note, while she's cleaning it, she's making noise, and there's that weird scene of Sylvester Stallone in like the really tight underwear with his
Oh
like
yeah, that was
butt
a
in the
weird.
air.
Yeah, what was that?
I don't know. I actually don't know why they included that in the movie.
Yeah, I thought the same. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why are they showing a gratuitous shot of his butt? And
Yeah.
even later in the movie, you see his butt in the shower too.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that like the scene really close to that one where like she's just standing in the bathroom and he's like, the classic, "Mom, you can't see me naked." She's like, "I haven't seen it before. I've already seen it before." But it's not funny. It's just kind of
No.
gross when you see in his butt. But yeah, the plot is that she wants to go and buy a gun for him to replace the gun that she broke, and of course you can't just buy a gun. There's like a waiting period, so she illegally buys a gun, a Mac 10, and then sees a murder happen, and then she becomes a murder witness. That's the plot. What?
Oh, well, I mean, that's even like that's it though. Like that's the plot, and
Yeah,
they barely mention it afterwards. It's like
yeah.
there's a couple of scenes where they like go to somebody like the bad guy's house,
Hmm.
and then I'm thinking, I remember watching the movie, and it's like 10 or 15 minutes left, and there's I'm like, when's the finale gonna, like, the climax should be starting like right now, and it didn't start until like 8 minutes left in the movie.
Yeah, and it's really poorly done. This movie to me feels like a bunch of scenes poorly put together. Like there's a really weird transition at one point where I honestly forget what the scene was before, but it like flows into a dream sequence. And it just like the way it cuts and it's put together, just it doesn't go well together. And I'm talking about the dream sequence of him getting a bank robber, and it's his, this is the part that made me the cringe. Like, is the part where it's a dream sequence and he's in a giant diaper, and Estelle Getty's like, "Oh, I'm going to change you," and has a big baby powder and a big diaper. And I was just, and seeing Sylvester Stallone in a diaper, I was just like, man, you really let them do this to you.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really kind of set the timeline on Stallone before we did this,
Oh,
but
true, true. Let's take a
yeah,
break. Let's see how we got here.
yeah. So I mean, like, right, at this point, he's a megastar at this point. He's done Rocky, he's done Rambo,
Hmm.
um, but afterwards he starts making some really questionable decisions, and after Rambo 3 not really performing what it wanted to be, Tango and Cash was a pretty decent hit, but it wasn't near what he wanted.
Hmm.
So he went back to the Rocky, um, the Rocky trove, and pulled out Rocky 5, which is it's the worst one in the entire series.
Yeah,
And
and I don't even think it did as well as like, not as well as Rocky 4.
no, I mean it earned 14 million on its opening weekend, and $41 million in total in the United States, which is really bad
For a
for that.
Rocky movie. Wow,
And the budget was 42 million.
that's rough.
So nobody was really excited to see this Rocky movie. And I think at this point too, it's just after the 80s, and you see like I'll say that it probably at this point, I'm thinking people are getting Stallone fatigue.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's probably big fatigue, and I mean, Rocky Four was 85, right? And then Rocky
Yeah.
Five's 90. That's a 5 year difference. People's opinions on Rocky in 85 and like how 80s that movie is was probably completely changed 5 years later. I can only imagine.
Well, Rocky Four was a huge hit, but box
Yes,
office
yeah.
wise. But in the mean, so we talked about Cobra. That didn't perform critically like how he wanted. Over the Top, which is like a huge misfire, and
Hmm.
Rambo 3 was not what he wanted it to be either. Um, Tango Cash, like I said, these are all like critical, like bombs, like back and forth, and it was just like people are just starting to realize that Stallone ain't what he once was. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, he came out with Oscar, which I remember reading about that one, just how like critically panned that one is. It's like him trying to do like a screwball comedy,
Yeah.
and that one, same deal, took $35 million to make, only made 20 million.
That's rough.
So people are not really liking this version of Stallone. And then I mean, I for somebody that up until this point feels like he had to be so hands on with all of his movies.
Hmm.
It's like, is he just running out of steam, or does he just not care, or is it just like I'm
I mean,
doing this movie for the paycheck, or is he more concerned about him being a star? I mean, what would you think that
I'm,
reason would
I'm
be?
I'm not sure because I mean it is interesting that after his career kind of going down a little bit, how he'd go from Rocky Five into two comedies with Oscar and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Did he want to break into just doing different genres? Did he not want to be pigeonholed as a action star? Could that be a part of it? And he just is picking completely bad scripts. It also could be ego, literally just like I could do anything and I will be fine, which kind of actually is true. Even though I want to say the early 90s to Sylvester Stallone was not very positive. Probably most of the 90s was not
I
very
was going to say,
positive for Stallone.
I was going to, I don't think, I mean, correct me. I mean, like the next mega hit he had, which I mean, Cliffhanger, I think performed pretty well,
Yeah, Cliffhanger did good.
but besides that one, but like his next great movie, I hate to say, probably isn't until Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, like, I'm looking at his career. Ants doesn't count. I don't care who, who says anything, but yeah, Rocky Balboa, like, you skip by a lot of like crap in between there.
A lot of crap,
Yeah,
and I
it's
just
so weird how he's such a popular like movie star, and yet he was allowed to be in a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of crap.
well, and it's just like this one. It's his version of the wacky like buddy cop movie,
Yeah.
and because at this point there was a lot of these tropes for buddy cop movies, and I think a big perpetrator of that is those Dirty Harry movies.
Hmm.
Because I don't know if you've seen all of those movies, but it's like a big running gag. Like he has like a new partner every movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I got to deal with this Hispanic guy, but I don't like Hispanics, or like I got to deal with this woman. Like, what, a male cop and a lady cop teaming up?
Oh
Like,
my
but
god.
that one's played a lot more straight. I'm making it sound more ridiculous, but it's played completely straight in those
Mm.
movies. But still, I'm just like, there was always like the buddy cop movie, like Turner and Hooch, like Cop and Dog, or Canine, or
Well, that's
something like
funny
that.
because Turner and Hooch is directed by the same guy.
Okay, well, that's probably my favorite one movie he directed. But
Yeah, not well. I don't even know. Oh, he made Tomorrow Never Dies.
yeah, I stand by my statement.
But yeah, no, that's funny that you bring that up. But no, that was such like a thing, like the kooky buddy comedy. Like I think about another misfire is Cop and a Half, which I know is a childhood movie of yours, but it reminds me a lot of this like kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Oh, and that one's just like, that one's much different tone, where it's just like
Mhm.
clearly it does not look like Burt Reynolds is having any fun at all. He just looks constantly just like, I am pissed, like this whole time, like it, like not acting, like it looks like he just did
Yes,
not
he's
want to
just
be there. But
just angry.
and this one, it's just, I think Stallone's trying to be funny,
Yeah,
but
I never really got the hint of, only sometimes maybe I got a hint of him not trying, but I think he's trying. It's not good. I don't think comedy like this is, I think a one liner is good for him, not just straight bits.
no, and he just does not work for as a comedian to me. I mean, he's tried in the past. He made that other movie I mentioned before called Rhinestone, where he
Yeah.
tries to become a country singer,
Hmm.
and it's like a big funny, like, oh, he's from New York, but he wants to be a country guy. But I don't know. It just I when he I guess what I'm trying to leading up to is just how far we've come. He's like
Yeah.
he made literally one of the greatest movies ever made in American history to now he's in a stupid diaper like on screen.
Yeah, and I think that just adds to the embarrassment of it all. It's just one of the, like, I don't know, like, I wonder where his career could have gone if he just like worked on movies like Rocky. He took his time, really worked hard for it instead of, because I don't even know if it's a paycheck thing. Did he really need paychecks? I actually just don't know why he kept doing this.
I think it was like an ego like relevancy type of thing. Like
Yeah,
he wanted to constantly be on screen.
yeah. He seemed to always just, anybody who had a little more power than him, a little more popularity than him, he got angry with. Richard Gere, big personality. Arnold Schwarzenegger, big personality. Rutger Hauer, people liked him more in the movie. It's just, if anybody even remotely came upon his ego, he was enemies with them.
Yeah. And that's not to say that like somebody like like you said, he was competing with Arnold constantly at the box office. And
Yeah,
Arnold, he did have some bombs, but not nearly the amount that Stallone had. It's just like
yeah.
if you look at the 90s, like Stallone's 90s versus
Oh,
Arnold's 90s, it's
yeah.
vastly different. It's like Arnold is still relevant and starting in these big budget action movies,
Yeah.
and Stallone's, just I mean, like early 2000s, like Stallone is starting to do like direct to DVD movies almost, and then Rocky came along and kind of revitalized his career.
Yeah, exactly. He was kind of becoming, like, maybe not a has been, but like a joke. That's it. He was kind of a joke, and Arnold got to leave his joke years because he went into government. But
That and I think Arnold just has a lot more charisma and everything too. But
that's true.
and I think Stallone, I think he was a lot more careful with something like Rocky because Rocky the character, he's not a very bright guy. He's not a
Mm.
very eloquent speaker or anything like that. He's just kind of like this down to earth, like like, hey, I'm not the brightest guy, but I got a lot of heart type of thing. So
Yeah,
it's this one, but like this one, he's like trying to play like average, like these bigger than life characters. It's hard to kind of
it's
see. Like I don't think he has the charisma weight to do that sort of thing.
no, I totally agree, and I think that's just part of the reason this doesn't work. Um, I mean, not only that, but it's just a bad script too. I mean, probably should have not picked this one. He should have probably read it before he heard Arnold was interested in it.
Um, so I leading up to the finale, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the plot because he's got his lieutenant that he wants to, right, is right, that's like the
It's like
captain,
the,
or
yeah,
the captain, yeah.
yeah,
uh,
who's played by a woman. Oh my god!
I know, Joe Beth Williams
But
from
oh yeah,
Poltergeist.
yeah. But of course they're romantically involved. Like, she couldn't just be his boss. They have to be an item too.
I know. It's like, oh well, of course, if there's a woman in this movie, it's just like it has to fall in love with him. It's just that's how it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah,
And of course, his mom gets involved with his love life. It's like, oh, Joey, why don't you date this girl, Joey? And just and there's this one scene. So she's like, his mom is trying to bond with his love interest, and it's just this one creepy scene, and where she's showing him she's again showing her pictures, and it's
Again.
like, and there's a scene where she's like, oh, there's my boy, like there's my boy Joey. He's got all those muscles in that swimsuit, and they're like, it's like, oh yeah, he's cute, and she's like, you could tell just by his swimsuit what type of special equipment he would have. And I'm like, is she saying what I'm thinking she's saying? And then like, she's like, and then the other woman laughs. And he's like, oh, honey, I may be his mother, but I'm still a woman. I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I was so grossed out there.
Yeah,
Just
me
like,
too. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
like, just like, just the thought of a parent describing their child's genitals
Yeah, and
is awful.
yeah, and being like, yeah, they're doing good down there. Yeah, no, I think I even like tried to convince myself that's not what she was talking about. I was like, no, she was talking about his muscles. I think that's what was going on. And then, the more you think about it, it's like, no, how do they agree to say that? How do they tell her like, oh, hey, you're gonna say this, and it's not gonna be weird. So just go for it.
Well, from what I read, this was no picnic for Estelle Getty either for
Really?
this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just she said that, I guess she was very opposed to violence, so she said, I'll only do the movie if there's no guns in this movie. And then that's what I read, and I don't know how true that
And then
is
they have
because
her buying an illegal gun.
yeah. And that was like, oh yeah, that was like the other scene too, where so she buys the illegal gun
Uh-huh.
and she's like, I got you a present, Joey. And then just she gives him the illegal gun, like the Mac 10. And he's like, he gets mad at her, like, Mom, like, what are you doing? You could go to jail for this. And she gets upset that he's like,
I wanted to surprise you. And then he says, it was a surprise.
so it
Oh.
just, man, it was just like, like, like that, like they want you I don't like, I was so confused. I'm like, am I supposed to agree with Stallone, or am I supposed to agree with his, like, feel sympathy for his
Yeah.
mother?
Because I'm really thinking like she really shouldn't have bought that gun. She should have known better. That was not good. Also, are you supposed to feel bad because she actually, because there's a rival cop that Sylvester Stallone doesn't like, she withholds all the information that she has about this murder and gives it to Sylvester Stallone instead of this cop. So like
Yeah.
the investigation's like ruined for like the first like 24 hours because she knows everything. She's like the license plate, the car, what the person looked like. But she's like, no, no, I need you. I forget his name, Joe. Yeah, I need you, Joe. I need you to solve the case.
Yeah, and he's just, and he Sylvester Stallone is being reasonable. He's like, Mom, like, you gotta tell him. You can't not
Yeah,
tell the police.
exactly. And then
Uh,
there are like main bad guys in this movie. I really didn't get it. I guess the rival gang that shot these gun dealers. I don't know, but one of them's played by the lawyer from Jurassic Park, Martin
oh
Ferrero.
yeah, oh yeah, Gennaro, Donald Gennaro.
Yeah. Um,
Um, there, and one of the other ones, like the bigger mobster, like the guy in the blue suit. He
yeah.
was in my favorite Christmas movie, Ernest Saves Christmas.
Oh wow, I
Uh,
didn't even recognize that.
yeah, well, I don't know if you've ever watched the Ernest movies. It's like the
Mhm.
duo Chuck and Bobby. It's like, there's Chuck.
Oh whoa! Oh my god, I didn't even realize. Maybe because that character, he's in like what? Like, well, no, that
Three or
character.
he's sitting there
Yeah.
probably like a couple. He's in there for about 4 or 5 scenes, but
Yeah, probably more than the main bad guy. There's like a main mobster bad guy, and I think he's like in two scenes, maybe.
I didn't care one bit about the bad guys. I was just like, these are so. This is just so watered down, just like
Yeah,
filler bad guys.
yeah, it's just all patched together, and there's like a really dumb scene in the airport where his mom is gonna leave and he's chasing her down. It's like, no, mom, you saved my love life. You can stay. It's just not a good scene. Same with the
No.
final fight, with the gunfight. I was
What
so tuned out of this movie.
I got mad during that final climax because
Yeah.
so like at the very end, so they figure out where the bad guy is, and Stallone's like, "All right, I'm gonna go after him," and she's like, "All right, well, I'm your partner. I'm coming with you," and he's like, "No, mom, you gotta stay," and so he leaves without her, and anyway, she gets her hands on a vehicle and a gun, and she goes out there herself, like she's going to bring up backup, but then she just parks like right in the middle and gets kidnapped like right away, and I'm just like it like immediately just ruins it, like because Sylvester
Yeah.
Stallone was trying to be like in stealth mode,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
now he has to jump out and be like, all right, don't shoot my mom, and
Yeah, I don't know what message this movie's trying to at least send. Like, oh, your elders are stupid, so don't trust them. That's all I get out of that.
uh and they actually but they had to do the funny bit. It's like, but she actually does get the final shot in the movie. Like she does
Yeah.
she's like, nobody hurts my baby.
She shoots somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget
Um,
what's the line that she says. I forget. She says some one-liner.
yeah, I forget.
Yeah.
Uh, but they do the whole makeup thing or whatever. But
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you. So the movie is called "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot."
Hmm.
So I thought it was going to be like like, oh, that was just going to be a joke. That was just like the joke, like haha, like my stop or my mom will shoot.
Hmm.
I was floored that they actually said that line in the movie.
Oh yeah, me too. Like it's such a bad line.
I was like, I thought like it was like, oh, it's the joke of the title, ha ha ha.
Yeah, it's a
But
silly title. Yeah.
but I was like, but then when they actually said it in the movie, I was like, oh wow, like they actually thought that was funny.
Funny enough. And then like test audiences watched it and they're like, oh, I guess that can be the title now.
Do you
One
think?
person
Oh,
laughed.
maybe that was it. Maybe they saw it like played so well on the test screening.
It got the most laughs. Like two people just
Like,
chuckled.
yeah, like, ha, ha, ha.
And they're like, oh, that's the title. Let's do an animated sequence for the opening of this movie with that title.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah. I do have to bring up that the final shot of this movie, because this movie has like the ending stinger where it's like where Tutti sees America's Most Wanted person just out in the airport. And Sylvester Stallone does get him, and she's like, "Oh, he killed his mother." But then Sylvester Stallone's look, I actually don't understand how this joke was supposed to play out. It's hard to convey looks over a podcast, but he doesn't. It doesn't look like he thinks it's funny. He doesn't look like he thinks it's angry. He just kind of just smirks a little, and that's the final shot of the movie.
yeah, I think that was supposed to be him being like, yeah, I get it, like type
Yeah,
of thing.
but it
Like,
just didn't work for me. I was like, it didn't make any sense.
well, it's like, yeah, because I never like, yeah, I get it that like she really loved him, but
Yeah,
that part's not a denial, but there was never like this big part where like Sylvester Stallone's like, you know what, I really do love my mom. Like there was no tender moment or
no,
anything like that where it was just like, mom, I mean, like we've had our disagreements and everything, but I really do love and appreciate everything you've done for me or what. There was nothing like that, but it just felt like a very one-sided
hmm,
relationship. But just really bad. I can't stress that enough. And
oh
not
yeah,
a good not a good movie. If
this one's a stinker.
I definitely not worth your time. If you're thinking it sounds funny, it's really not.
No, it's. We've talked about bad comedies before, and this is just right in there of like curiosity. It's not funny. It's just not even funny in a bad way. It's just
And,
no fun.
and this movie is under 90 minutes. Still felt very long.
Yeah, I totally agree. It felt longer than our next one, so
It did.
yeah. So we'll see. God, yeah, it's a not recommend for sure.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. But we actually, funny enough, I think we are doing a back-to-back movie. So, Ryan, what do we got coming up next?
Well, Nathan, we got another Stallone movie, and we're going to end the podcast on a cliffhanger. Stop. Actually, we are going to be talking about 1993's Cliffhanger, and that movie is actually streaming over on Netflix right now.
Perfect. All right. Well, if you want to tweet at us, if you want to X at us, you can go over to x.com. And is that what we're calling? No, it's repost. It's repost, right?
Go over there and post us at X.
Just whatever. You can send us a message over on X, Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. You can also email us, Drive-In Double Feature Podcast at gmail.com. But until next time.
Until next time.